We're going to talk about old times, Barack Obama. Sean Spicer's here to break down some electoral things, plus some culture war stuff, and I'm right. Let's have a talk about something. I want you to know that what I'm about to say, you're going to react to it one of two ways, most likely, and it's going to be dependent on your age. And please don't take that in any way as an insult to older or younger people. You'll know what I mean in just a moment. So I was born in 1981. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're young, this won't really make sense to you. Maybe you won't even believe me. If you're old, if you're my age or older, you will know what I'm saying is true. You see all the race angst that's out there today? It's everywhere now. Can't escape it. DEI this, black versus white that. Every talking head on the news talking about how horrible white people are, kids getting taught this, Black Lives Matter. Now every professional athlete is a race activist talking about how oppressed black people are, endless race snipping here, race there. And then, of course, that's brought about the rise of it on the right as well. They think, white people are in a race war. You've all this race sniping, race division, race stuff that's out there now. You know, it wasn't that way when I grew up. Don't I sound like a grandpa? It just wasn't. And let me clarify something. I need to put a big fat disclaimer on this. There was race tension because there is always race tension. This is not unique to America or our period of time. The history of the world is tensions between cultures, races, religions. There was always race tension. So it has always existed, but when I grew up, and this is not ancient history, I'm 43 years old, for most of my life, for about half of my life, it just wasn't something we thought about or talked about. I mean, we had eyes, we could see that person's white, that person's black, but it didn't exist. And then came a man named Barack Hussein Obama. Maybe you think he's black or half black, but that's not what Barack Obama really is, because you see, that's just skin color. It's really not important. It's just the pigmentation of your skin. Barack Obama is not black. Barack Obama is red. Barack Obama is a communist. He's not black, white, left, middle. Barack Obama is a bona fide America-hating communist. His mentor in life was a man named Frank Marshall Davis. Look up Mr. Frank Marshall Davis. You know, communists actually had membership cards with numbers on them. Frank Marshall Davis, he was a card-carrying member. He was a communist. He mentored Barack Obama. He taught him about how evil America really was. And he taught him how to be a revolutionary, how to divide, how to rip a nation apart, because that was, of course, what Frank Marshall Davis wanted. And as he mentored and raised this young man, that's how he taught Barack Obama. And then Barack Obama and his family went and sat in a church. Reverend Jeremiah Wright was the pastor of that church. And for years, decades, Barack Obama and his witch wife sat in that church and they heard all about the U.S. of KKKA. That's his pastor's direct quote. They heard all about how bad this country sucks and it's evil and it's wrong and it's this and it's that. And I didn't know any of these things were happening because no one knew who Barack Obama was at the time. Just either a no-namer or maybe he was a state senator. None of us knew that this America-hating communist was rising and rising and rising. So while we were living in an era where racial harmony, I'm not going to say harmony is probably too strong a word, but as close as you could probably get to racial harmony, that's really where we were in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. We were luxuriating in this world and we had no idea this destroyer was rising. And then Barack Obama got into power. And Barack Obama did as he had been trained to do. Barack Obama began to divide. Barack Obama began to pit one citizen against another. Barack Obama Well, he was the freaking worst. And the reason I'm bringing up Barack Obama is because Barack Obama, he was the dividing line. He was the Y in the road where America, we were on the right path, and then Obama came, and now here we are of black versus white. This white people, all this endless race angst and activism. Barack Obama was the one. You want to know why so many Americans despise each other now? Why there's so much race division? Barack Obama was that why, and that man had the gall to get up yesterday and say this.
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter, and I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it.
I don't know how we got so divisive, so toxic, so bitter. There was nothing that happened in this country during Obama's 8-year presidency that he did not pounce on and take advantage of as an opportunity to divide, as an opportunity to move the communist revolution forward. You know, again, this is a dividing line. If you're young right now, maybe you're rolling your eyes. Maybe you think I'm overstating it. Maybe it's, oh, Jesse, you're crazy. We didn't have real race harmony in this country. Older folks watching it with your kids, tell them what it was like. Not in ancient history, not back in my day, in the 90s. We would tune in at night on Friday nights. My cousins would come over, and parents would eventually, when it was dark, they'd make us come inside, and we'd turn on, I believe it was ABC, and we would watch 2 shows every single Friday night. It was the Friday night lineup on ABC. First one was Full House. It was this white family, and they were trying to figure out right from wrong and raising these girls, and that was the show, and it was a funny show. And the show right after it was Family Matters, and it was a black family. And it just wasn't a thing. It never came up. We weren't watching white shows or black shows. We weren't filling quotas. It was just great television. And if you're young, you've never lived in that world, and I'm sorry. It's not your fault. You've never lived in that world, but you should know we had it like 15 minutes ago. And then that piece of crap took power and started to divide this country. You maybe, again, this will be an age gap. Maybe you think politicians and reporters politicizing mass shootings, maybe you think that's just kind of how it's always been. Well, I'm here to tell you something else. There were mass shootings before. We've had mass shootings in this country. There's always going to be some psycho who wants to kill a bunch of people. I never, for the first half of my life, I don't remember, I'm sure it happened here or there, I don't remember a single time that something horrible, tragic, like a mass shooting happened, and a politician of any stripe, Democrat, Republican, politicized it. If most of the time they never spoke at all because it was deemed as inappropriate, but if they did speak, if the president got up and did speak, he would give a speech about how this is a time, let's pray for our fellow Americans. It's a very sad day. Let's come together. It was always something along those lines. But that's not Barack Hussein Obama. You see, he was fighting a revolution, is fighting a revolution. And he recognized that a mass shooting, well, it's a tool for the revolution. If you're wondering why every time there's a mass shooting, every reporter and Democrat politician will stand on the bodies of dead people immediately and try to grab your guns. How did that happen? Where did all this begin? Well, allow me to introduce you once again to Barack Obama.
This is not about politics. This is about these families and families all across the country who are saying, let's make it a little harder for our kids to get gunned down.
The fact that 26-year-olds were gunned down in the most violent fashion possible, and this town couldn't do anything about it, was stunning to me. And so the question then becomes, what can we do about it? The only thing that's going to change is public opinion. If public opinion does not demand change in Congress, it will not change.
Each time we see one of these mass shootings,
our thoughts and prayers are not enough. Earlier this year, I answered a question in an interview. My response here at this podium ends up being routine. Right now, I can imagine the press release is being cranked out. Somebody somewhere will comment and say, Obama politicized this issue. I would ask news organizations, because I won't put these facts forward, I'd ask the American people to think about how they can get our government to change these laws.
Couldn't help himself. You don't realize it if you're young. If you're too young, and again, I'm not insulting you, you can't control when you were born. If you're too young, you really don't understand how close this country was not long ago. Where we are now was in so much that guy's corner. That is the guy who did it to us. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. We have a great show for you here. We actually need to talk about a man who's wrongfully imprisoned and suffering right now. Speaking of ridiculous gun laws, before we talk about Dexter Taylor, let's talk about chalk, because there's something else that we used to have in this country. We used to have testosterone. We have lost half of our testosterone in 50 years. You realize that? Fellas, are you down a lot? Out of energy? Having a hard time focused? I want to tell you about a male vitality stack from Chalk. Chalk has natural herbal supplements, endless natural herbal supplements, but a male vitality stack is the one they have for the men. They have female vitality stacks for the ladies, by the way, if you'd like to stop needing that nap in the afternoon. 20% increase in your T levels in 90 days, but they have endless natural herbal supplements, whatever you're looking for, and it's Chalktober. They're giving out freebies. Chalk.com/JesseTV gets you a huge discount on subscriptions. Go get one. We'll be back.
Six o'clock in the morning. You're lying in bed.
Yeah.
What happens?
I hear a bang, and I see underneath the crack in my door, I see like weapon lights flickering back. And I said, ooh.
Hands up. Get out of here right now!
So I said, hello. I'm Dexter Taylor.
My name is Dexter Taylor. Yo, we know your name. Come on.
Why are you looking for me? Because I still thought they had the wrong house. And then they said, yeah, we're here for you.
Police department, search warrant!
April 6, 2022, an elite NYPD unit forces its way into Dexter Taylor's home in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Keep a gun on. Keep a gun on that thing.
Why are you looking for me?
Maybe it's some rifles you got laying around everywhere.
We're in a search warrant for this location.
Yes, sir. I know it's probably real, but can I see it?
It was an hours-long search of Taylor's packed home, found loaded with ghost guns.
Good days. You see these rifles? They are dressed to kill.
After a week-long trial earlier this year, Taylor, who's 53, was convicted of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon and other charges. He was sentenced to 10 years for making ghost guns.
That video just fills me with rage every single time I watch it. Just they kick in his door like he's a freaking mobster. And dude, do you remember the coverage we did? Remember the interview we did with Dexter Taylor? And I say this as respectfully as possible. He's just kind of a dork. It's just a dude who got into guns and started building. He's just a good dude. Joining me now, Jeff Charles, contributor to Red State. He's more sickened by this whole freaking thing than I am. Jeff, for those who don't remember the story, remember the interview, please, would you explain what this dastardly criminal did to have an NYPD SWAT team kick in his door and stick guns in his face?
Yeah, you know what's ironic about that, Jesse, is if he actually had hurt somebody with those guns, he might have already been back out on the street in New York City. I mean, just to give it a snapshot, basically, Dexter Taylor is a software engineer. He's a brilliant man. He knows math. He knows how to code, all this stuff. And he wanted to get into weapon science. He wanted to eventually get into gunsmithing. So he started assembling his own firearms just for his personal use. He wasn't trying to sell anything. He ordered the parts legally, and then he assembled them. And then that led to the SWAT raid, which happened in 2022. And they basically railroaded him just for having the guns. He had never even fired the guns, even to practice. He was just building them because he wanted to get into weapons science and then later on try to innovate the field. Next thing you know, he's being hauled into jail. Spent time in Rikers. Then they let him out. Then he had his trial. Then he had his trial in earlier this year in May. The judge said that the judge specifically admonished Dexter and his lawyer that they could not mention the Second Amendment during the proceedings. He was convicted. The judge sentenced him to 10 years in prison, and that's where he is right now. But mind you, no criminal record, no criminal whatsoever before this, and they threw the book at him just for having the guns.
Jeez, just a computer geek, just a good dude. It just floors me. Jeff, you have been on this, and I credit to you for staying on this, and you have spoken with Dexter. I have that right? How's he doing?
Yeah, he's holding up as well as he can. I mean, we talk to him pretty frequently. He calls, and there's ways to send him emails, especially for people who want to support him. You can send him emails through Securus Tech. You know, this speaks to who Dexter is, because when he calls, he'll ask how I'm doing, me and my fans. He'd be like, "How are you guys doing? What's going on?" They go, "No. How are you doing, Dexter? We're outside here." He is one of the strongest people that I have ever met or had the honor to interact with. And he's making the best of it as that he can, but he is still fighting. He has not given up. He knew from the beginning that this is probably where he would end up as he continues this fight.
Jeff, I'm going to ask the dumbest question, but you and I have been friends a long time. You're really used to that. Can we get him out? And I don't mean break him out of prison. Is there a way? Where's he at in the appeals process? Please tell me this dude's not going to walk out of prison at 63 years old.
Yeah, I'm really hoping not. And I've been speaking with his attorney throughout this whole process. I've been speaking with him. There was a little bit of a transition when he was first sent to prison in May. They've had to move him around a few times, but now he's in Coxsackie Correctional Facility, and that's where he'll be for the time being. So now this is where it's time to start kicking off the appeals process. There's going to be a lot of waiting. There are legal fees that are needed to at least get the paperwork filed, but that's the next step in this process. So we're trying to help raise money for his legal fund. That he does have a give, send, go set up. But both him and his lawyer understand that they're probably going to lose at the lower courts, and this may actually get up to the Supreme Court. I'm hoping it doesn't get that far, because that means he's going to be in jail this whole time. It's not very likely that they'll let him out pending appeal. So that's basically where it stands right now.
Jeff, I remember when I talked to Dexter, you know, everyone knows my get out of the blue state thing, get to a red state. And I'd say that really, honestly, because of cases exactly like this, because there are places in this country that are the Soviet Union already. People don't want to accept that, but they are. And Dexter, honestly, to his credit, I admired it, was defiant about that. He said, "No, I'm not quitting. I'm not leaving. Jeff, what are your thoughts on where we are with that? I don't want to tell people to give up, but there are places for your freedom, for your sake, you have to tactically retreat from, right?
You know, sometimes that's the case. And I've been torn on this, Jesse, because I've been thinking about this for years. I mean, I don't knock anybody who decides to leave California or New York City. I mean, I'm from Southern California. I'll only go back to visit family and things like that. But there are reasons to leave, economic and what have you. But here's what I would say about that. And this is why I understand where Dexter's coming from. You might leave New York. You might leave California, but at a certain point, you're going to run out of places to run to, because Democrats don't think the way Republicans do. Republicans won't try to win over Democrat voters in general. They won't go into New York. I mean, Trump kind of has, but the party in general doesn't. Democrats don't think that way. There's a reason why Beto O'Rourke was almost a senator in Texas, because Democrats don't think that way. So even if you run to Texas, I mean, I'm in rural Louisiana right now, you still have to fight, because it's still coming there, even if you flee from blue areas.
How's the food, Jeff? You're eating well, aren't you? How'd you not get fat? I get fat every time I go to Louisiana.
So I live like in the northern area of Louisiana, out in the boondocks. It takes about 30 minutes to get to a fast food restaurant. So I've actually lost weight. It's been amazing.
Hang in there, brother. I appreciate you. All right. Let's do some cultural issues, shall we? Before we do those, sleep can be tough to come by sometimes. And look, taking something to help you sleep, there are a million of those things. Everyone knows you go into your doctor, he'll write you a prescription. There's just standard over-the-counter things. Hey, this will help you sleep. And I'm here to tell you right now, they'll put you to sleep. Those things will put you to sleep. That's not hard. What is difficult is what can you take to sleep that will have you feeling good when you wake up instead of groggy or half dead? Because that's what all the rest of them do. That's what they've always done to me. I'm going to take this to sleep, and then I sleep for 19 hours, and I wake up and still feel like a zombie. Dream powder from Beam doesn't do that because it's natural. It's melatonin and things like that, and it's a cup of hot chocolate. Mine is cinnamon chocolate. It's delicious. It's an amazing cup of hot chocolate. And when I sit down at night, maybe I'm reading a book, watching a show with the wife, just sip on a little cup of hot chocolate, and then gone. And when I wake up, I'm ready to go. Do you want that? Anytime you want a good night's sleep, do you want that? Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. We'll be back.
Do you believe that transgender Americans should have access to gender-affirming care in this country?
I believe we should follow the law. I mean, I think you're probably pointing to the fact that Donald Trump's campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars.
They're trying to define you on this.
Yes,
I'm asking you to define yourself, though. Just broadly speaking, what is your value? Do you believe they should have that access?
I believe that people, as the law states, even on this issue about federal law, that is a decision that doctors will make in terms of what is medically necessary. I'm not going to put myself in the position of a doctor.
I will move on, but I don't know that I heard a clear answer from you on the issue of gender-affirming care. It sounds like what you're saying is there should be something between trans Americans and their doctors. It feels like that's a long way from "we see you and we love you," which was your message to trans Americans in May. What do you want the LGBTQ plus community to know as they're looking for a full-throated backing from you for trans Americans?
I believe that all people should be treated with dignity and respect. Period.
Man, times have really changed. You can't even get a full-throated backing for Kamala anymore. Joining me now, my friends Terry Schilling, president of the American Principles Project, and Amber Duke, of course, wonderful Washington editor for The Spectator. Terry, I have long ago said that I believe the tranny thing was a mistake for the communists just because it's so gross and it grosses people out, even non-political people, that it's a political loser in the end. Am I right? Are we finally winning on this because of these freaks?
Well, listen, Jesse, this is the moment we've all been working for, right? You and I have known about this weakness from the Democratic Party for quite some time. And of course, it had to be Donald Trump that was the first one to actually recognize this and put real money behind it. Kamala said a lot of crazy stuff in her life, but the craziest things that she's ever said is that men can have babies and that men can become women and women can become men. It's all preposterous. But notice how she's squirming in that interview. She doesn't want to give a direct answer. She was fine during the primary in 2019 and 2020, but now she's got to deal with swing voters. So we got to make her we got to force her to choose between her base voters and the swing voters, and Donald Trump did that. It's absolutely beautiful. This is absolutely a loser for her and really the whole country if it goes through.
Amber, why the tipping point? Is it an electoral thing? Is it the dudes in women's sports thing? I mean, it's not that anyone cares about women's sports, but we don't want dudes beating up on women. Maybe that's the central part of it. What is it?
I think it's just that more people got exposed to this and realized that this was something that could legitimately pose a threat to their own children through the women's sports and the locker rooms and the bathrooms. And in fact, the United Nations of all organizations came out with a report today indicating that nearly 200 women across the world have lost out on some kind of championship because of a male competing in their sports. So this is not something that is relegated to just a handful of schools around the country. It has unfortunately become very prolific. And if you want even greater evidence that the left is running away from this issue, the New York Times published a report today indicating that a researcher who was doing what was supposed to be the seminal study in the United States, propping up puberty blockers as an appropriate treatment for children with gender dysphoria, hid the research, the results, for years because, surprise, surprise, They didn't show any mental health improvement for those children. And she was worried that the political right was going to weaponize the results.
Oh, yes, of course. So, Terry, I have long said, everyone gets mad when I say it, but you know how much I care about that the most evil creature on the planet of any species is the liberal white woman. No other creature would groom its children for sacrifice later on. Even though a great white shark may eat its young, it won't groom it specifically so it can eat it later. But the liberal white woman will. And people think I'm crazy when I say that. I want to just point everybody to this Ring doorbell camera of the liberal white woman.
Hi. I want to know how you can vote.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
Shameful.
Are you the one that walks by here and always screaming at people?
No, I haven't walked by recently.
Okay, because a lot of people walk by and scream.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You are voting for the devil. Don't you know that?
No.
Why are you voting for him?
Because I believe he is the moral candidate.
Oh my God. F you for that one.
That's
moral?
exactly right. That's how your side acts.
Oh my God.
That's
He's
how
the
you
most
guys...
immoral person around.
In your opinion, that's
Oh,
okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. God bless you.
Oh, gosh. Terry, the level of mental illness we have in this country, yes, it's hilarious, but man, live, brother, we have some seriously deranged people we share a country with.
No, that's right. And I think we should investigate any collusion between the mainstream media and big pharma and also the therapy industry for working together, right? I mean, the media has really done a number on normal, everyday people who, you know, in the 90s were probably pretty decent people to be around, but they have really instilled a lot of mental illness into these people. It's absolutely amazing to watch.
Amber, is that why they lean so far into the Hitler thing that makes us all roll our eyes? The Atlantic, of course, run by a liberal white woman, runs some crazy piece about Trump as Hitler, and then Dome gives some press conference today about Trump being Hitler. We all roll our eyes, but it works on these nutballs, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, we know that women are more susceptible to emotional arguments. This is not some like misogynistic comment. This is basic biology. Intrinsically, we are more likely to respond to the ideas of empathy and compassion, and the left weaponizes that consistently to earn the votes of women. And we have seen it done perfectly by the Kamala campaign with their calling card issue of abortion. They have been falsely claiming for months now that women are dying as a result of Trump's abortion ban, insisting that a woman who died from complications from taking an abortion pill is somehow the victim of a pro-life law, just consistently manipulating, emotionally blackmailing women who, have legitimate concerns about women's health. Certainly they hear that word and don't think that it means, murdering your baby in the womb. And they think that a pro-life law is going to stop somebody from being able to have a miscarriage. It's truly deranged.
Terry, where are we at on that front? Obviously, it's the pro-life thing is something the national GOP has very much set aside. They don't want to touch the issue, and that's fine. Clearly, we have a cultural issue here that it's going to take a long time to win, because it took a long time to turn America's women into baby-murdering savages. Are we gaining ground on that issue?
Look, I think that abortion, with the overturn of Dobbs, I think we are now able to actually fight this horrific evil that has plagued our country. I think it's temporarily gone for this election, but I think that within 4 years, you could have a J.D. Vance-like candidate come up and start talking about a late-term abortion ban nationally, with exceptions, right? This isn't dead. We have to still keep fighting because they tricked us, right? They won all these ballot initiatives in the states and off-year elections, and it scared these politicians. But once we start really winning on the Democrats' extremism on this and taking advantage of this, like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are already doing right now in the campaign, I think you'll start to see more politicians running on at least late-term abortion bans nationally.
Terry, Amber, appreciate you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right. we have more to get to. But preborn's the way we're saving these babies' lives. You know, we can talk about it. I'm pro-life, but what are we actually doing? Yeah, we can vote Republican, but as I just talked about, even that doesn't really get you very pro-life anymore. Preborn is setting up these clinics in high abortion areas and giving free ultrasounds to women who are about to abort their babies. When a woman gets an ultrasound, she chooses life almost every time. It is the pro-life tool that is saving lives by the thousand. $28 is what that ultrasound costs. Everything you give to Preborn is tax deductible. Give them as much as you want, but $28. Preborn.com/Jesse. We'll be back. Okay, so I always am concerned about my own bubble. And I'll be honest with you, I have created my own bubble for comfort reasons, especially as I get older. I only want to be around the people who share my values. I live in a neighborhood that is blood red and dripping with guns and ammunition. When I come to work here in the studio, I only hire people who share my values. I don't interview dirty commies on my show because I don't like dirty commies. All this is wonderful for my mental health, but it's not often great for your perspective on elections. I'm looking right now and I see Dome in free fall and Republicans overperforming, and I'm just celebrating preemptively. And so I need Sean to step in here and slap me awake as he often does. Joining me now, host of the amazing Sean Spicer Show, which I'm glad everyone's getting hooked on, as I am, Sean Spicer. Okay, Sean, I'm in my bubble. I can't see outside of my bubble. You're the political guy.
I was channeling my inner Doug Emhoff, and I thought I was going to slap you. Wait, that's the wrong segment. Sorry.
Oh, that's wrong.
I shouldn't joke
Sean,
about that. I shouldn't joke about that. But it's since no one else will report on it.
You should. No, you should. Every male feminist is a piece of crap. I've said it many times. The second you get the guy bragging about what a male feminist he is and how much he loves women, there's about a 99% chance he's beaten one or knocked one up when he shouldn't have. And of course, Doug Emhoff just fulfills that. No, you take it away. Of course, every time. All right, Sean, the election though. Are we looking good?
So every week, every Wednesday, I do a Road to 270 on the show, as you know, and I tell people, like, I don't buy into vibes and yard signs, and like, it's data based, right? So registration, early vote, whatever. A couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, I felt really worried about Nevada. I downplayed North Carolina because of the storm and the effect on the county. Anyway, tonight, I'm going to tell you this. We're above 300 electoral votes. Are we there yet? No. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Every state, including Minnesota, New Hampshire, Virginia, in New Hampshire, are all trending in Trump's way. That's not my thing. Here's the biggest tell. In 4 states, Montana, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the Democrats running for the Senate are running ads embracing Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris. That means that their data shows that Donald Trump is in a better position than Kamala Harris. So that's one piece. You look at a state like Nevada that gave me concerns. Washoe County up in the upper Northwest where Reno is, and then Clark County down south where Vegas is. Republicans are leading in the early vote. That doesn't happen. That's like a high school football team beating Ohio State or Texas at halftime. It doesn't happen. We are in amazing shape right now in terms of the early and absentee vote, not just in Nevada, but in Georgia, in North Carolina. Very positive signs coming out of Arizona and Pennsylvania as well. The Democrats are very, very concerned, Jesse. That doesn't even include the uptick in registration. Look, I don't say this because you can go back. The tape will be there for people to play. I feel right now Trump is in a position to win every one of the 7 battleground states. And I would argue 4 of the tier, or at least one of the tier 2 states that I mentioned, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Virginia, or New Mexico, he picks up one of them. But there's no question in my mind that if the election were held today, Donald Trump would win with well over 300 electoral votes.
Okay, so I actually want to get to down ballot stuff in a moment, but I want to set that aside for a moment. You said if the election were held today, we're less than 2 weeks away from the election. Dome rolls out some ridiculous October surprise attempt today that's so laughable we honestly don't even have to get into it. What does that tell me? It tells me they don't have an October surprise coming. Sean, what could possibly happen?
It's not just that what could happen, right? So think back to previous October surprises. George W. Bush getting a DWI that had been uncovered. Tell me what you could find out about Donald Trump today that would shock you. I mean, aside from him being the product of two Martians that are currently controlling him from outer space, and even that I'd say, I don't know about that. I mean, there's not much. The October surprise on her side, and trust me, we saw this with the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg. He tried to create this story today. No one's biting. They're trying desperately. The Democrats, I think, are literally in freak out mode. You hear Barack Obama and Joe Biden talking about all of the damage that he's going to. I mean, they don't know what to do. But there's only so many plays that you can call at the end of the fourth quarter. And that's where we are right now. I think that they're going to have a problem. Here's what I will tell you. We are still at a point in the early vote where if Democrats suddenly got their act together, they could change stuff. But in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden got 1.4 million early votes. Trump ended up with 1.3 on election day, a mix in election day. And right now, if we swamp them in early vote, they can't come back. That's a fact. Like there's, Trump likes to say too big to rig. If we get out there, you see my sticker here. I went downtown Alexandria. You say you don't like to be around commies. I had to do it to cast my early vote. I went into City Hall. I cast my early vote proudly because I want to bank it. Jesse, here's the deal, just for people to understand this. It costs roughly about $12 to chase a voter. The longer you wait to vote, it costs more, up to on average, about $100. So when Virginia started to vote early, I went down and cast my ballot. I want them to take that, on average, $88 and go chase a lower propensity voter, somebody who only votes maybe one of 4 elections or is a newly registered voter. Get out there, spend your time and money getting that. Stop calling me, stop texting me. I banked my vote. But we are creating something that I have not seen in 30 years of Republican politics, which is we are out there in force voting early. Their share of blacks, of women, of young people in Detroit, they've got a problem with the Arab community out there. They are in a big problem because the coalition they need to win is falling apart.
That is interesting. Okay, so as far as falling apart goes, when it comes to presidential politics, as most people watching know, everyone who watches Sean knows this, there's a presidential race, but then there's a bunch of down ballot stuff that is critically important too. And you can lose the presidency without hurting your party down ballot up to a point. At some point in time, the candidate is so bad and doing so poorly that the candidates underneath him are in mortal danger. The fact you tell me Dems are running Donald Trump ads in swing states tells me there is a real fear that Kamala Harris is going to bring the entire ticket crashing down. Am I overstating that?
No. At some point, all of these politicians worry about themselves. Like you've got John Tester in Montana, Casey in Pennsylvania, Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, and Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. They are running ads. So if Donald Trump, let's just say he was running a point ahead of Kamala Harris in one of these states, they wouldn't worry. They'd be like, okay, we'll stay there. When you're running an ad saying, I've worked with President Donald Trump, right? The guy that is the threat to democracy. Suddenly you're running an ad saying, I like Donald Trump. I worked with him. I fought to pass fill in the blank. You know that your candidate's underwater. All of them are on broadcast television running ads talking about working with Donald Trump. They are in panic mode. And I'm going to tell you this for everyone who understands, you brought up down ballot races. I was there at the beginning of the Trump administration. He needs a Senate to get his nominations through. He needs a House to get his policy through. We saw the difference. The second 2 years of Trump, impeachment, stalling on the legislative front. Donald Trump needs this to get through. He knows exactly what to do now. He needs 2 solid years, if not 4, with a solid Republican majority in both houses to get this agenda through and to undermine all of the bad work that this administration has put through policy-wise. So I'm telling you, I have this right now, Republicans at 55. So let's just real quickly on the Senate. It's 49-50 right now. They're losing a seat. They're going to pick up West Virginia. That's Joe Manchin, is the retiring Democrat. Jim Justice, the current governor, running for Senate as a Republican. That's a pickup. Montana, Tim Sheehy will beat John Tester. That's a pickup in Montana. Okay, that gets you to 51-49. I think Bernie Moreno beats Sherrod Brown in Ohio. That's 52. And then I predict all 3 blue wall Senate states elect a Republican senator. That gets us to 55.
Wow, 55 changes the game. Okay, just real quick before I let you go, Sean, why Montana? Because I have a special affinity from there. It's where I graduated high school. My mother is still up there in Montana. I love that state so much. It was not, I would say, solidly blue, but it was Max Baucus and dorks like that for most of my childhood. Did Montana just go hardcore right? Because I'm here for it if they did.
I think that there was, so Max Baucus represented it. I mean, then he became chairman of the Finance Committee, as you recall. I mean, this is a guy, he was on the Environment and Public Works Committee as ranking member. He built up a reputation as taking care of Montana and bringing home the bacon, if you will. Tester kind of Tester, looked like a Republican. He just didn't vote one. He, had the camo hat and the flannel shirt, what Tim Walz tries to do, although he's dressing up for Halloween as a man this year. I think that Tester knew how to play the game. The problem is that people in Montana got hip to the joke that at some point the policy did matter and you couldn't hide anymore, right? You couldn't pretend to be one person in Montana and one person in Washington, D.C. His voting record caught up with him. Tim Sheehy, retired Navy SEAL, extraordinary sharp businessman, great candidate. And I think, Tester also has had close races. And so finally the roosters are coming home, and this is, the hens are coming home to roost, whatever it is. It's late. And so I think that this is the time when it's going to finally it's going to matter. And the Dems have cut bait, by the way. They realize they can't save Tester. So they tried to go after Nebraska, Deb Fischer. She's fine there. Then it was Florida and Texas. Right now, we've got 2 polls showing Ted Cruz up 8 in Texas and 8 points, Rick Scott up in Florida. Republicans are going to hold the only 3 states the Democrats tried to make a play at, and then we're just going to keep picking up. That's why I'm very, very bullish on it.
John, you are the man. I have no doubt we'll be talking again soon. Thank you, brother. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.